I have talked about sustainability so much, and I've even written a book about it, but I'm not going to stop talking about it until it stops being an issue. I know that still in 2021 there are loads of people who are still kind of new to the topic of sustainability, or maybe they're new on their journey and they're a beginner to learning about it. So I wanted to make a video similar to ones I've made in the past about how to be sustainable without breaking the bank, because I don't think that we have to spend any money at all in order to understand sustainability and live in a more environmentally friendly way. There is a misconception that you have to spend loads of money in order to be sustainable, which I think is the case if you're thinking about shopping only at sustainable and ethical fashion brands that are maybe far beyond what you're used to spending, or if you're thinking about restocking your entire pantry with only organic produce and buying loads of fancy glass jars and only shopping in a zero waste refill shop that's miles and miles away from your home. Those things are going to start adding up. I really want to turn the focus away from those things that I don't think necessarily have much of an impact, but they do cost a lot of money, to the things that have far greater of an impact and don't have to cost you anything at all. Number one is to let go of the idea that you can save the planet on your own. The world's problems certainly do not fall on your shoulders alone, and the individualist idea of environmentalism actually can have its downfalls. You haven't individually caused the problem of climate change alone, so why would you think that you individually have to solve the problem of climate change alone? And a lot of us, when we come to sustainability and zero waste living, we think every last bit of plastic, every piece of fast fashion, every animal product we consume means that, you know, we're not doing our bit for the planet. And that guilt can really build up. So please take this video and any videos like it, any lists like it, with a massive pinch of salt. Because at the end of the day, if we're to save the planet, we need big corporations, we need governments, and we need an entire societal shift to happen. So us individually doing stuff is great, but it really goes beyond that. And this is a huge tip and a huge step when it comes to saving the planet on a budget. Number two is to go on a budget. Now, if we're trying to live more sustainably whilst not spending any money, going on a budget is one of the best places to start, because you're going to understand where you're spending your money and hopefully cut down on spending, which means you're not going to be consuming as much stuff, and consumption is at the heart of our issue in many ways. You can go online and find so many budget trackers, budget layouts that you can follow, go through your expenses, go through how much money you're earning, try and balance it out and really cut back on the things that aren't essential and aren't sustainable. Number three is to not buy fast fashion. If you give up fast fashion, you're going to save money. It's one of the first things that I did. I had an unhealthy addiction to shopping, so I decided to stop shopping, and guess what? I spent a lot less money. I purchased things secondhand instead, and fast fashion just isn't necessarily something that we need to be consuming anymore. It's unsustainable, it's unethical, and it's a really huge problem. Paying for cheap clothes that are made in factories that treat people unethically and abuse them, where they're not paid a living wage, where they're running health and safety risks, and they're using dyes and fabrics that are unsustainable for our environment, is just not a thing we should be doing anymore. Number four is to leave your lawn alone. Having a beautiful manicured lawn is the norm. It's what most people aspire towards, to have a lovely green lawn in their garden. But I'm suggesting that you leave the lawn alone, or at least a section of the lawn alone, to flourish and become natural and wild and attract pollinators, and do a favour to the environment by having that patch of your own home which helps out all the little bees and all the little insects. Number five is to become a minimalist. Minimalism and sustainability intertwine very perfectly. It's what my book is about. It's essentially cutting out what you don't need and what doesn't bring you purpose or joy, which hopefully is going to cut out a lot of unnecessary stuff and therefore a lot of unnecessary resources and waste. I'm going to go back to the first point because, of course, we are living in a capitalist society that requires us to spend money in order to keep our economy going, which then therefore makes our well-being and our lives better. It's not a situation that we can rectify individually. It comes with political and societal change over time. But as a minimalist, you can go against the grain and the status quo and say, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm not going to buy stuff that I don't need. I'm not going to be tempted. Number six is to switch to a renewable energy company. This video is sponsored by Octopus Energy, and it is sponsored by them for a reason. Switching to a renewable energy company is one of the most accessible and simple things that you can do because it literally just takes a phone call. It's not a complicated thing. You can do it now. Go online, sign up, and it's extremely simple. They take care of it for you. It's something you can do right now. It doesn't take any effort really, and it's just so simple but so impactful. So yeah, I'll leave that linked below for you. I've personally been with Octopus Energy as a customer for years now, and I've been with them for years for a reason, and that's why they're sponsoring me, because I absolutely love everything they do. And I love the fact that when I switch on my computer, when I charge up this camera, it's being charged by renewable energy rather than fossil fuels, which will damage the planet. We need to move away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy in order to make a really big difference. Octopus Energy also have the awards to back it up. They have been recommended by Which for 4 years in a row. They're Uswitch's Supplier of the Year, and they also won their Best Value for Money and Best Customer Service. Plus, they won the Renewable Energy Association's Best Company for 2021. They are really ahead of the curve when it comes to tech, renewable generation. They've recently invested in their own wind turbines. They're the UK's largest investor in solar, and they just have lots of cool green tech. As this video is about saving the planet on a budget, Octopus Energy is much cheaper than the big 6 non-renewable companies. Their electricity comes from 100% green renewable sources, and they also offer an option to offset your gas on a super green tariff for all the environmentally conscious. Check out the link in the description. Octopus Energy will give you £50 if you sign up through my link, and you can switch really quickly and simply, and there'll be way more information down below and on their website about how to do so. Number 7 is to use Ecosia. This is a really easy one to do. Simply switch from using Google as a search engine to Ecosia. Not sponsored, it's just a really kind of cool thing that you go online. Every time you search something, they plant trees. Win-win. Number 8 is to talk about sustainability with everybody. The more we discuss this topic, the more we make it kind of the general consensus amongst our families, our friends, our communities, the more likely it is that people are going to vote differently, people are going to care about this, and people are going to make changes on an individual level and on a larger scale that will actually see results. If we're all keeping it quiet, being a bit taboo about it, thinking, oh, I don't really want to piss my family off, I don't really want to say the wrong thing or rub them up the wrong way, we're never going to get anywhere, because we have to discuss this kind of thing. We have to discuss politics, we have to discuss what's going on in our world for other people to understand it. Don't give up the fight, bring it up, be respectful, and make it a conversation that you're having. Number 9 is Roxy's come round to help me out with this video. Number 9 is to register to vote. I really hope that those of you watching this are already registered, but if you aren't, I'll leave a link down below to register in the UK. Roxy's saying, yes, go register. Whatever country you're living in, please make sure that you are registered, so when the next election comes along or time you're asked to vote for something, you're able to do so. You need to remind yourself that you are paying tax money to hire these people to represent you. You as a constituent are literally putting money for them to do what you want, because we have got these politicians there to represent our needs. That's what they are designed to be. That's how politics and how democracy and these things began. We've got to go back to the root of it. They are there to look at a constituency and say, these people want this, these people want this. What policies, what laws, what things can we do to represent that? So make sure that your voice is heard, and you can be the person to say, hey, I care about green policies, I care about the environment, you need to represent that as my MP. Number 10 is to accept what you can and what you can't change. This is another issue, I think, within sustainability, that we think that everybody can do everything and everybody should be giving up plastic and everybody should be living sustainably and not doing this, that and the other, when the reality is something quite different. Ableism comes into it, sexism comes into it, racism comes into it. There are so many other intersections that limit people from being able to do certain things, and that needs to be remembered by us as a community of people who care about sustainability, but also on an individual level. If I talk about my own experience, I used to have an eating disorder, so I don't put so much pressure on myself for if I buy stuff in plastic packaging, because if there's some food that I would like to eat, I don't like to have stress around food or to think about food too much. So I try my best, but I don't beat myself up about it, because that is something that I don't want to change and I can't really change. Beyond that, the person who seems like they're doing it all probably isn't, and we should take them off the pedestal because nobody is perfect. Number 11 is to hold brands accountable. If there are big brands out there who have unsustainable practices, we need to be telling them, hey, we don't like these unsustainable practices, please could you stop, and could you tell us how you're going to change? And there are lots of brands who are talking about the changes that they're making and the sustainability goals that they have for 2015 or 2015, what am I talking about? That was 5-6 years ago. 2025 or 2030, we need to make sure that when those dates come around, we're saying to them, hey, have you actually followed through on that goal that you said that you would set out to do? And talk to them, contact them on social media, say, hey, I'm a customer and I don't like how you're doing this certain thing. Do your research and make sure that they are aware that you have these thoughts. Number 12 is to speak to your local MP about climate change. Just like registering to vote, we need to talk to our local MPs because as a constituent, they are the ones who are going to represent us. It's easy to focus on prime ministers and presidents and the people who are, you know, the face of our country, but our local MPs are the people who actually are implementing change locally to you because they're your local MP. So contact them and tell them, hey, if you want to get my vote, then could you please vote for these green policies? And hey, I really care about the environment, I live here, and I've noticed this thing happening locally to me that I'm not happy about. What are you going to do about it? Number 13 is to always be prepared. On a small level, if you want to be sustainable and make sure you've got your own reusable cup and you've got your cutlery with you and you know you're not going to be tempted to buy fast fashion, you've got to be prepared and you've got to have a plan of action. It's all about forming habits where it just is second nature that you always have these things in your bag, that you have a way to distract yourself if you're tempted to shop. I have loads of these kinds of tips in my book, which I know I've mentioned a few times, but it is relevant because it's hard to talk about all this in such a short space of time. But make sure you're prepared so that you don't trip up. Number 14 is to read and read more. This doesn't have to cost you money. You can find out if your local library has these books and read them at the library and take them out. You can ask friends of yours who have these books. You can get them secondhand really affordably, so it's still on a budget. If we want to learn about sustainability and how it affects people and the planet, then reading is where it's going to start because social media can only say so much. Videos like this are very short and quick. Social media posts are only this long, so go beyond that and read up. Number 15 is a cute little one, setting timers for your showers, because this is something I actually don't think I've given as a tip before, and I do actually do this. So when I have a shower, I usually try and make it so it's under one song, so I try and listen to one song and get out by the end of it. Obviously I don't do this every single time, especially if I'm washing this hair, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm essentially setting myself a timer to use less waste. So you can try it with the song thing, or you can set an alarm and get in and out. Number 16 is learn how to repair. Fixing things, I think, is a lost skill in this day and age because it's far easier just to click buy and have something delivered to you the next day. Sometimes it even feels like it's cheaper because we don't have to waste our time learning how to repair stuff. But I think if we all set about learning a new skill to repair clothing, to repair gadgets, to repair things that break around the house, we could not only save money but also save a lot of resources. Number 17 is to change to an ethical bank and ethical investments. This doesn't have to cost you any more money. It's literally just a switch from whatever bank you're using right now to a more ethical one, and whatever pension or investments you're making to an ethical one. So I switched to Starling a few years ago, and also my pension and my investments are higher rated when it comes to how ethical they are and how sustainable they are, and I keep it that way. So I know that my money isn't going into unsustainable businesses' pockets. Number 18 is to empty your inbox and your online storage. Online storage actually uses a lot of resources and energy, and maybe is something that a lot of us don't think about because we just have our inbox there and we think, well, that's not doing anything, it's just on my computer. Well, somewhere there is a big storage facility that is being run by lots and lots of energy, and it's storing your stuff online. Go through your inbox, delete everything that you don't need anymore, and do a big digital detox. Number 19 is to say no. At the top of the sustainability pyramid is refuse. So if you refuse to buy fast fashion, to shop with Amazon, to eat meat, to use plastic unnecessarily, then you are stopping that dead in its tracks. And also saying no is going to save you money. Number 20 is to unplug and switch off. I think a lot of us leave stuff on and plugged in without thinking about the fact that that actually uses energy. So whenever I go away for the weekend, we unplug everything in the house because that saves energy. Whenever I stop using something, I will unplug it. I won't charge my phone unnecessarily when it's fully charged. Just have a little think about things around the house that are plugged in all the time that really don't need to be. Number 21 is secondhand first. Every time that you need something, go and try and find it secondhand. If you need a new piece of furniture, a new chair, a new bed, go look on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, see if you can find it secondhand. Same goes for clothing. Go onto Depop if you're really after a pair of black jeans, go onto Depop, black jeans, size, whatever your size is, and find it there first. And don't even go to the sites that sell it new until you have exhausted every chance of finding it secondhand, because chances are you're going to find it secondhand and you're going to find it a lot more affordably. Number 22 is to learn how to store your food properly. Food storage is essential to avoid food waste, so you can make sure that you're using Tupperware that's airtight in your fridge and your freezer, storing your potatoes and onions in the dark, making sure that your fruit isn't, you know, piled up on top of one another so that it gets no air and gets moldy, and bananas and avocados make other fruits ripen so much quicker. Learn this information and save on a lot of food waste. Talking of food, number 23 is to compost your food. I go on about this and I can't leave this out of this list because I just think it's far too important. If all of the people on my street composted, I know for a fact on a Wednesday the bins would not be piled so high. I experienced this after university when I started to compost, because I barely ever had to take out the bin because there was just so little in there because it's all in the compost bin. And I found ways to make it work. I didn't have a garden at one point, so I took it to a local garden that accepted donations. I contacted my local council, found out how people dealt with compost in the local area. Lots of people will collect food waste, so bin men will collect food waste if you're lucky enough to have that service. Or if you have a garden, get a compost bin and have your compost bin inside that you just decant into the bin outside. Ask around. You may have neighbours that have gardens that would happily accept your compost. Or at your farmer's market, ask the farmer, would you take my food waste for compost? Get thinking outside the box and make composting happen in your household. Number 24 is to start a petition. If there's something happening locally to you to do with the environment that you're like, why is this happening? Start a petition to go beyond social media, to go beyond conversations with your friends, to go beyond the sustainable practices that you're doing and get a solution. You're gonna say, hey, there's this issue, I'm not happy about it. Neither are all these other people who've signed this. Could you please do something about it as my local MP, as my local council, as my local government? Number 25 is to plant a pollinator-friendly plant. If you have a garden, you can do this by researching what flowers and what plants bees and butterflies love. Or if you don't have a garden, simply do this on a windowsill and create a little sanctuary for nature. Number 26 is to reuse what you already have, always. Sounds obvious, but sometimes we have to think, do we already have something we could use before we click buy? This is kind of second to what I mentioned earlier about refusing. Reusing is another step that we can take. Do we actually already have something that we could reuse? Do we already have a dress that we could wear? Because did anyone remember us wearing that 2 years ago to that Christmas party? Probably not. Number 27 is to learn about recycling rules. This may sound really boring, but when we moved to this house, I was recycling Tetra Paks, thinking that Tetra Paks could be recycled. Turns out they can't, and Alex was like, Maddie, you're silly, they can't be recycled, and he took them all out of the recycling bin. So it's different everywhere. There are different rules, and it's important to learn them so that you know that you're recycling effectively, so that it's not just ending up in the bin anyway. Number 28 is to understand intersectionality in environmentalism. Sustainability really goes beyond zero waste and plastic free and caring about animals going extinct. It is essentially about caring about people who live on this planet. Who does the climate crisis affect the most, and who will it affect the most in the future? It will be Black, Indigenous, people of colour who are affected the most now, and that will be affected the most later on because of systemic racism. Why is this happening in the first place? Well, white supremacy and capitalism has created an unsustainable world where wealth is hoarded. Is sustainable living accessible to all? Well, no. Mental and physical health, where you live, what your job is, how much money you earn, all affects it. Marginalised people shouldn't be expected to suddenly adopt all of these sustainable living practices as if it's up to them to deal with the climate crisis, because it isn't. With that in mind, the climate crisis, we need to be intersectional, because we need to understand how different social justice issues cross over and are fundamental to environmentalism. Number 29 is to develop community. I think community has really lost its purpose in the modern world. We're very focused on living very individualistic lives, and we need community if we're going to have any success when it comes to the climate crisis, because we need other people to care like us in order for it to gain momentum. We need large groups of people talking about this. We need large groups of people protesting against this. We need social justice movements to have a backing and a community behind them. And even on a smaller level, if we want to have sustainable practices in our day-to-day lives, it's going to be far easier if those around us also are trying to do that as well, and we find a community local to us or online who share those values. It will keep you motivated and it will hopefully make a difference on a larger scale. Number 30 is to go beyond lists like this. I struggle making lists like this now, if I'm honest, because I feel like in some ways they are futile, because these issues go far beyond individual change or individual people deciding to do certain things. We have to look deeper and further to understand how we're going to make these changes happen in a quick enough fashion to stop the planet from warming to the point of no return. If we watch videos like this and think, right, I've ticked that off, I'm ditching plastic, I'm going vegan, I've done my bit, I don't think we're going to succeed, because we need to come together and realise that it's going to be politicians and CEOs of big companies that need to listen, and countries as a whole that need to collaborate to make a difference. And if people aren't behind that, and people aren't voting that way, people aren't protesting that way, people aren't, you know, actually actively doing something, then it won't happen. So watch this video, listen to this list, get motivated, but don't think that's the end. So that's it, that's my list. I know it was long, it always is long. It's very difficult to make these lists short because they are nuanced, and I even feel like what I've said in this video isn't enough. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, let me know your feedback in the comments down below, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. This is great.